He thought he knew exactly what he wanted in a wife. Young, beautiful, hardworking, a woman who could cook, keep a house, and make a lonely ranch feel like home. The only problem was that he couldn't write, so he asked his best friend to write the letter for him. That turned out to be the best mistake of his life, because the woman who answered that letter was nothing like the wife he had imagined. And before it was over, she would turn his entire world upside down and teach him that the person we want is not always the person we're meant to spend our life with. Now sit back and enjoy the story. Wyoming Territory. Spring 1887. According to Benjamin Carter, marriage was the worst mistake a man could make. Cole Nanton had heard this speech so many times he could practically recite it himself. On this particular morning, they were repairing a section of fence along the southern pasture while a cool Wyoming wind rolled across the prairie. Benjamin drove a fence post into the ground and shook his head dramatically. "I'm telling you, Cole, marriage is prison." Cole glanced up from the wire he was tightening. "You seem unusually happy for a prisoner." Benjamin pointed the hammer at him. "That's because I've learned how to survive." Cole raised an eyebrow. Benjamin lowered his voice. "You put your wife on top of your head and leave her there." Cole laughed. Benjamin looked offended. "I'm serious. You carry her around on your head." "No, but if she says move a table, you move the table." Cole nodded. "Reasonable." "Then she changes her mind." Cole waited. "You move it back." Cole's grin widened. "And that's prison." "No, that's Tuesday." The wind carried away Cole's laughter. Benjamin continued. "This week I've repaired a roof, painted a chicken coop, hauled water, bought flour, visited her aunt, and listened to 42 minutes about curtains." 42. That sounds difficult. "It is." Benjamin pointed a finger at him. "And don't get any ideas. Stay single. Stay free." Cole studied his friend. The strange thing was that Benjamin smiled every time he talked about his wife. Every complaint ended with a grin. Every story sounded suspiciously like happiness. Benjamin noticed the look. "What? You talk about your wife more than anything else." Benjamin opened his mouth, closed it, then grumbled. "That's not the point." A few minutes later, he rode away toward town, toward home, toward someone waiting for him. Cole watched until he disappeared over a rise. Then he turned back toward his ranch. That evening, the cabin felt larger than usual. The silence felt larger too. Cole cooked his own supper, as always, cleaned his own dishes, as always, sat alone at his table, as always, one chair, one plate, one cup. For years he had told himself he preferred it that way. Yet for the first time, he wasn't sure that was true. The next morning he found Benjamin outside the general store. Benjamin was carrying 3 sacks of flour. "Still serving your sentence?" Cole asked. Benjamin groaned. "Don't remind me." Cole hesitated, then said something he had never said before. "I think I'd like a wife." All 3 sacks hit the ground. Benjamin stared. "You what?" "I think I'd like to get married." Benjamin blinked twice, then slowly smiled. "Well, I'll be damned." An hour later, they were sitting inside the small matrimonial agency beside the train depot. Benjamin dipped a pen into an ink bottle. "What kind of woman do you want?" Cole shifted uncomfortably. "Young." Benjamin wrote. "Pretty." "More writing." "Kind." Benjamin nodded. "Hardworking." "Good cook." Cole thought for a moment. "And quiet." Benjamin continued scribbling. Cole watched the pen move across the paper. "You writing all that?" "Every word." That was not entirely true. Cole spoke English well enough to run a ranch, buy cattle, sell horse, and negotiate with traders. But reading and writing long letters had never been his strength. So he trusted Benjamin. Unfortunately, Benjamin was having far too much fun. Young became age unimportant. Quiet became strong opinions preferred. Good cook became cooking skills unnecessary. And every time Cole described his ideal woman, Benjamin somehow managed to write the opposite. If marriage had turned Benjamin's life upside down, then perhaps it was only fair that Cole suffered the same fate. Finally, Benjamin stopped smiling. For a moment, he looked out the window toward the Wyoming prairie, toward the lonely ranch where his friend lived by himself. Then he wrote one final sentence, not as a joke, not as revenge, but because it was true. I don't need someone to take care of me. I've been doing that for years. Benjamin folded the letter before Cole could ask any questions. Done. What does it say? Benjamin handed it directly to the agency clerk. It says you're looking for trouble. Cole laughed. Good. Nearly 300 miles away in Cheyenne, Remy Bennett accidentally set her supper on fire. For the third time that month, smoke filled her apartment above her dress shop. She stared at the blackened potatoes and sighed. Not again. 5 minutes later, the fire was out. The potatoes were ruined, and Remy was eating crackers for supper. The funny thing was that she could negotiate contracts, manage employees, predict fashion trends, and outsmart businessmen twice her age. Yet somehow, she could not cook a potato. She laughed. Then the laughter faded. The apartment grew quiet, too quiet. There was no one waiting to hear about her day. No one sitting across the table. No one to laugh with. The following afternoon, she visited a matrimonial agency. Most of the letters sounded exactly the same. Wanted a good housekeeper. Wanted an obedient wife. Wanted a skilled cook. Remy rolled her eyes. Then she picked up another letter and stopped. Her gaze settled on the final sentence. I don't need someone to take care of me. I've been doing that for years. She read it again. A small smile appeared, for reasons she couldn't quite explain. She reached for a pen and began writing. The train arrived just after noon. Remy Bennett stood near the door of the passenger car as Wyoming rolled past the window in endless waves of grass and schema. She had spent the entire journey wondering what Cole Nanton would look like. The letters had not helped. Letters could tell you a man's thoughts. They could not tell you whether he smiled or whether he was handsome. The train finally slowed into the small depot. Remy took a breath, then stepped onto the platform. The first thing she noticed was the wind. The second was the man waiting near the end of the platform. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, standing perfectly still beneath the Wyoming sun. For one strange moment, both of them simply stared. Then he removed his hat. Miss Bennett. His voice was deeper than she imagined. Remy smiled. Mr. Nanton. He nodded. Neither seemed quite sure what to say next. After months of letters, they suddenly found themselves speechless. Remy decided someone had to speak. You look different than I imagined. One corner of Cole's mouth lifted. Is that good or bad? I'm still deciding. To her surprise, he laughed. It was a quiet laugh, but a real one. And suddenly the awkwardness eased. A little. The ride to the ranch took nearly 2 hours. The wagon rattled across open prairie, while the Wyoming wind tugged at Remy's hat. Neither spoke much. Oddly enough, she didn't mind. Most men filled silence with nonsense. Cole seemed comfortable letting silence exist. Eventually, Remy glanced toward him. Do you always say so little? Cole considered the question. No. Only when I'm nervous. Remy blinked. That answer surprised her. And for some reason, she found it charming. The ranch appeared near sunset, a modest house, a barn, several corrals, a creek winding through the property, nothing grand, nothing flashy. Yet everything looked sturdy. built to last, just like the man who owned it. Remy found herself smiling. Then she met the chickens. The disaster began the following morning. Determined to be useful, Remy announced she would collect eggs. Cole seemed unconvinced. Are the chickens dangerous? No. Good. 10 minutes later, she came running across the yard with an angry hen chasing her. The bird appeared to be winning. Remy circled a water trough. The chicken followed. Cole stepped outside just in time to witness the battle. Do something, Remy shouted. Cole calmly walked forward, picked up the chicken, returned it to the coop. The entire rescue took less than 10 seconds. Remy adjusted her hat. You could have helped sooner. I wanted to see how it ended. For the first time, she saw genuine amusement in his eyes. Unfortunately, it looked very good on him. The next disaster happened 2 days later. Remy decided to bake bread. She had never successfully baked bread before. There seemed no reason to start now. An hour later, smoke drifted from the kitchen. Cole found her staring at something black and unrecognizable. Is it supposed to look like that? He asked. No. It smells angry. Remy laughed despite herself. That evening, she discovered another surprise. Cole could cook. Not merely survive. Cook. The stew was excellent. The biscuits were perfect. Even the pie tasted better than anything she'd purchased in Cheyenne. Remy stared at him across the table. You made this? Yes. All of it? Yes. You cook better than most women. Cole shrugged. I lived alone. That was apparently the entire explanation. Over the next several days, Remy made more discoveries. Cole washed dishes, did laundry, mended clothes, kept the house spotless. Meanwhile, she managed to spill milk, ruin a shirt, and somehow drop an entire bucket into the creek. The bucket floated away. Cole watched it disappear. So, is this normal for you? Remy sighed, painfully, for the first time. Cole laughed hard enough that she heard it. By the end of the first week, something unexpected had happened. They were comfortable together. Not close. Not yet. But comfortable. One evening, they sat on the porch watching the sun settle over the grasslands. The horses grazed beyond the corrals. The ranch glowed gold beneath the fading light. Remy found herself studying the property. The barns, the fence, the horse pens. The longer she looked, the more a strange feeling grew. Not disappointment. Possibility. Finally, she pointed toward one of the corrals. Why do you keep your best horses mixed with the others? Cole looked over. What do you mean? The gray stallion. She pointed. He's worth more than the rest. Cole followed her gaze, then shrugged. I never thought about it. Remy continued looking across the ranch. At the land, the horse, the buildings, the future hidden inside all of it. For the first time, she wasn't seeing what the ranch was. She was seeing what it could be. And somehow, she suspected Cole Nanton had never looked at it that way before. The next morning, Remy couldn't stop thinking about the gray stallion, or the ranch, or the dozens of little things she had noticed during her first week in Wyoming. After breakfast, she found Cole repairing a saddle beneath the shade of the barn. He glanced up as she approached. You look like you were planning something. Remy smiled. I am. Cole immediately looked concerned. That made her laugh. She sat beside him and opened one of the ranch ledgers she had borrowed the night before. You keep records. I try. They're terrible. Cole blinked. I thought that was a compliment. It wasn't. He laughed softly. Remy turned several pages. You sell horses to 3 different buyers. Yes. One of them pays less than the others. Cole frowned. I hadn't noticed. I have. She pointed to a series of numbers. You've probably lost hundreds of dollars over the last few years. That got his attention. Cole leaned closer. For the next hour, Remy explained things he had never considered: profit margins, market demand, future contracts, different pricing strategies. By the end of the conversation, Cole felt as though he had been looking at his own ranch through a dirty window for years. And somehow, Remy had cleaned the glass. Over the following days, the conversations continued. Every morning she found another question. Every afternoon, she found another opportunity. Why not build larger horse pens? Why not separate the strongest bloodlines? Why not prepare for increased demand from the railroad towns? Why not think 5 years ahead instead of 5 days? Cole rarely had answers. Not because she was wrong, because he had never asked the questions. One afternoon, Benjamin arrived at the ranch and found both of them sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by ledgers. He stared, then looked at Cole, then at Remy, then back at Cole. "What happened to you?" Cole frowned. "What do you mean? You used to spend your evenings fixing fences." Benjamin pointed toward the paperwork. "Now you're voluntarily looking at numbers." Remy smiled. "I made him." Benjamin nodded. "That sounds about right." A few days later, a horse buyer arrived from Cheyenne. His name was Walter Grayson. He had purchased horses from ranchers across Wyoming for years. The moment he stepped from his wagon, Remy disliked him. The moment he saw Remy, he dismissed her. The moment he saw Cole, he underestimated him. It was a mistake. Grayson spent the first hour explaining why horse prices were falling, why demand was weak, why ranchers should be grateful for whatever he offered. Then he named a price. Cole almost accepted. Almost. Before Remy quietly cleared her throat. "That's interesting." Grayson turned toward her. "Excuse me." Remy smiled politely. "You sold similar horses in Laramie last month for nearly 20% more." The buyer blinked. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. Cole remained silent, watching, listening, learning. Remy continued, "Your own freight records suggest demand is increasing, not decreasing." Grayson shifted in his chair. Cole noticed something then. For the first time since arriving, Remy looked exactly like the successful businesswoman she was. Confident, sharp, completely fearless. The negotiation lasted another hour. When it finally ended, Grayson agreed to a price higher than any Cole had received before. After the buyer left, Benjamin whistled. "Remind me never to play cards against her." Remy grinned. Cole simply stared at the signed contract. The numbers looked almost unreal. Benjamin leaned against the porch railing. "You like her because she's pretty." Cole didn't answer immediately. His eyes drifted toward the pasture where Remy was walking among the horses. The late afternoon sun caught her hair. The wind tugged gently at her dress. For a long moment, he watched her. Then he shook his head. "No." Benjamin smiled. "No." Cole looked out across the ranch, across the corrals, the barns, the fields, everything he had spent years building, and everything he had never truly imagined becoming more. "Before Remy came here," he said quietly, "I thought I owned a ranch." Benjamin waited. Cole's eyes followed Remy as she disappeared beyond the horse pens. "Now I realize I own a future." Benjamin's smile slowly faded, because he knew exactly what that meant. Cole Nanton had fallen in love. Unfortunately, fate chose the exact moment to intervene. The next morning, a letter arrived from Cheyenne. It carried the seal of a wealthy investor, and inside was an opportunity Remy had dreamed about for nearly 10 years. An opportunity that could change her life forever. An opportunity that might take her away from Wyoming, away from the ranch, away from Cole. And for the first time since she arrived, the future suddenly looked complicated. The letter from Cheyenne arrived on a Tuesday morning. By Wednesday, everyone on the ranch knew something had changed, not because Remy said much, because she didn't. She carried the letter folded inside her pocket and read it 3 times a day when she thought nobody was looking. Unfortunately, Benjamin noticed everything, especially things that weren't his business. He found Cole repairing a fence that afternoon. "She's leaving, isn't she?" Cole kept hammering. "Maybe." Benjamin sighed. "That's a yes." The hammer struck the post harder than necessary. Benjamin watched his friend for a moment. Then, for once, decided not to joke. "That's rough." Cole said nothing, because it was. The opportunity waiting for Remy in Cheyenne was enormous. A wealthy investor wanted to expand her business, open new locations, hire more workers, turn a successful dress shop into something much larger. It was exactly the kind of future she had spent years working toward. And Cole knew it. That was the problem. Every evening afterward seemed quieter than the one before. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. Like both of them were aware that time was running out. The 30 days were nearly over. One afternoon, Remy stood beside the horse pens watching workers repair a section of fencing. Cole had already started implementing several of her ideas. New breeding plans, new contracts, better record keeping. The future she had imagined for the ranch was already beginning to take shape. She should have felt proud. Instead, she felt sad, because soon it wouldn't be hers to watch anymore. "You were right." She turned. Cole was standing beside her. "About what?" "The horse pens." She smiled. "That might be the first time you've admitted that." "It's not." "It is." He laughed. The sound made her chest ache. Neither spoke after that. The silence between them had changed. It no longer felt empty. It felt familiar. Comfortable. Dangerously comfortable. 2 nights before her departure, a storm rolled across the prairie. Rain drummed against the roof. Wind rattled the windows. Inside the cabin, firelight danced across the walls. Remy sat near the stove while Cole prepared supper. The smell of fresh bread filled the room. For a while, neither spoke. Then Remy watched him slide a pan onto the table. "You know," she said, "most men expect their wives to cook." Cole sat across from her. "Most men have never tasted your cooking." Remy laughed. "So that's a no. Definitely a no." For a few moments, they simply smiled at each other. Then the laughter faded. The storm continued outside. Cole stared at the fire. His heart was pounding harder than it ever had during a cattle drive, harder than during negotiations, harder than during any storm. Because this mattered. Finally, he looked at her. "Remy." Something in his voice made her stop smiling. "Yes." He took a breath, then another. "Can I cook for you for the rest of your life?" The room went completely still. Even the storm seemed farther away. Remy stared at him. Cole looked down at his hand for a moment, before continuing. "Before you came here," he paused, searching for the right words. "I spent every day thinking about tomorrow." His eyes met hers again. "You taught me to think about 10 years from now." Remy felt her throat tighten. Cole gave a small, uncertain smile. "Nobody has ever done that." For a long moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled softly between them. Remy wanted to say yes, more than she wanted to admit. Because somewhere during the past month, she had fallen in love with the quiet Apache rancher, who cooked better than she did, and somehow always knew when she needed help. But there was still the letter, still the opportunity waiting in Cheyenne, still the dream she had spent nearly a decade building, and she couldn't abandon it. Just as Cole couldn't abandon this land. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know." Pain flashed briefly across Cole's face, then disappeared. He nodded, because he understood. That somehow made it hurt even more. 2 days later, They stood beside the train. Neither had found better answers. The conductor called for passengers. Remy picked up her suitcase. Cole reached into his pocket, then held out something small. A key. Remy looked down at it. The house key. Cole nodded. Keep it. Her eyes widened. Why? He gave a faint smile. In case you ever want to come back. For a second, she couldn't speak. Then the conductor called again. Remy climbed aboard. The train began to move. Cole stood on the platform watching. Neither waited for it, neither trusted themselves to. As the station slowly disappeared behind her, Remy closed her hand around the key. And for the first time since coming to Wyoming, she cried. The first few weeks after Remy left were the hardest. Cole kept expecting to see her sitting on the porch when he returned from the pasture, or hear her voice from the kitchen, asking questions he couldn't answer. Instead, there was only silence, the same silence he had lived with for years. The difference was that now he noticed it, and that made all the difference. So he worked. He worked harder than ever before. He expanded the horse pens, separated the strongest bloodies, improved his records, negotiated better contracts. Everything Remy had suggested. At first, it was simply because she had been right. Later, it became something else, a way of keeping her close whenever a new improvement succeeded. He found himself thinking the same thing. Remy should see this. The thought never stopped coming. Months passed. The ranch prospered, then prospered even more. For the first time in his life, Cole wasn't simply surviving. He was growing. Yet every success felt strangely incomplete, because there was nobody sitting across the table at supper, nobody to share it with. 300 miles away, Remy was discovering the same problem. The investor's offer had changed everything. Her business expanded faster than she had imagined. New customers arrived every week. More dressmakers were hired. Profits increased by every measure. She was successful. It was everything she had worked toward, everything she had dreamed of. Yet every time good news arrived, her first thought was always the same. I should tell Cole. When a wealthy rancher's wife ordered 6 custom gowns, when a newspaper praised her designs, when she signed the lease for a larger workshop, every victory made her think of him, and every time she remembered that he wasn't there. One afternoon she found herself staring at the key hanging beside her desk. The key Cole had given her. She had carried it every day for nearly a year, without really understanding why. Now she did. It wasn't a key to a house. It was a key to a life she missed. Meanwhile, Benjamin Carter was becoming increasingly irritated, not because of his wife. That was normal. Because Cole was acting like an idiot. Benjamin finally confronted him one evening. You miss her. Cole didn't bother denying it. Yes. Then why are you still here? Cole frowned. This is my ranch. Benjamin rolled his eyes. I know where we are. Cole waited. Benjamin shook his head. You spent a year building a future. Yes. Did it ever occur to you that she's part of it, for once? Cole had no answer. At almost the exact same moment in Cheyenne, Remy reached a similar conclusion. She sat alone in her office after closing. The key rested in her hand. The room was filled with everything she had wanted. Success, money, opportunity. Yet something important was missing. Someone important. She stood, packed a small travel bag, and purchased a train ticket the following morning. Neither knew it, but both had finally made the same decision. Unfortunately, fate wasn't finished with them yet. 3 days later, Cole arrived in Cheyenne, only to learn that Remy Bennett had left town. That morning, his heart sank. At nearly the same moment, Remy arrived at the ranch, only to discover that Cole had gone to Cheyenne. 2 trains, 2 journeys, Two people moving in opposite directions, both missing each other by mere days. For the first time since meeting, each believed they might have waited too long. The return journey felt endless. Cole barely noticed the scenery. By the time he finally reached the ranch, the sun was sinking toward the horizon. The prairie glowed gold beneath the evening light. Everything looked exactly the same. The house, the barn, the porch. Then he saw someone sitting on the steps. For a moment, he thought he was imagining things. The figure stood. Remy. His heart stopped. Neither ceased. Neither spoke. The distance between them suddenly felt both enormous and very small. Then Cole noticed something in her hand. The key. The same key he had given her a year earlier. Slowly, Remy smiled. You were right. Cole took a step forward. About what? Her eyes filled with emotion. A future isn't much fun if there's nobody to share it with. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind moved softly through the grass. The sun continued sinking behind the hills. Cole crossed the remaining distance between them, then stopped. Close enough to touch her. Close enough to sigh. Then stay. A tear slipped down Remy's cheek. She laughed softly and wiped it away. Only if you promise to keep cooking. For the first time all day, Cole smiled. That quiet smile she had missed more than she wanted to admit. For the rest of my life. Remy laughed, then stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Cole held her tightly, as though letting go would be the biggest mistake of his life. The ranch stood behind them, the future stretched ahead, and for the first time, neither one had to choose between love and their dreams. They had finally found a way to build both.